Hello, this is Mike Cook. I'm here in my garage gym, and it's time for episode 18 of Anti-Doping Updates. Today, we've got two good stories. One is a sprinter with a whereabouts finding, and second is a water polo player with a positive test for substances of abuse. All right, let's get started. First story to talk about today is Michelle Ayi. She is a sprinter from Trinidad and Tobago. She is ranked number 8 in the world with a personal best of 10.82. In the Rio 2016 games, she placed 6th in the 100 and the 200 and placed 5th on the 4x100 meter relay. She also won the gold medal in the 2018 Gold Coast Commonwealth Games in the 100 and the silver medal in the 2019 Pan Am Games in Lima, Peru. She's a member of the World Athletics Registered Testing Pool, which means that she needs to provide quarterly reports where she lists a 1-hour window each day where she can be available for unannounced testing. Michelle Ayi, although she represents and is from Trinidad and Tobago, she lives in Texas where she trains. She missed 3 tests in June 2018, February 2019, and April 2019. And if you miss 3 tests in a 12-month period, that's considered an anti-doping rule violation and is subject to a 2-year sanction. Athletics Integrity Unit is the part of World Athletics that is an independent unit that administers the anti-doping program. So they charged her with anti-doping rule violation, and they provided an administrative review period for her to challenge each of these tests. And after charging her with the anti-doping rule violation, the Olympic Committee of Trinidad and Tobago appealed the Athletics Integrity Unit decision to the Court for Arbitration of Sport. So this became a case at the highest level of sports dispute resolution, the Court for Arbitration of Sport. So at the Court for Arbitration of Sport, Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee argued that they had defenses to 2 of the 3 missed tests. For the second missed test, they argued that Michelle Ayi was actually in Trinidad and Tobago competing in the national championship rather than in Texas, her home, and therefore it shouldn't be her fault. Court for Arbitration of Sport did not accept that. They concluded that it's the athlete's responsibility to update their whereabouts findings and have those accurately reflect where she is. As for the third missed test, the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee argued that they had a couple arguments for this one. They argued that Michelle Ayi lives on the 3rd floor of her apartment building, and therefore she couldn't hear when the doping control officer came to her place for testing. The doping control officer testified in the Court for Arbitration of Sport hearing that she went to Michelle Ayi's apartment, knocked several times during the 1-hour period, rang the doorbell several times, and called both of the numbers that Michelle Ayi had listed, and no answer during the entire 1-hour period that she was there. And the doping control officer also said that the only other person that she saw there was a woman who was leaving another apartment building in the complex and was out walking her dog. Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee argued that Michelle couldn't hear the knocking, the ringing, or the phone, the knocking on the door, the doorbell ringing, or the phone ringing, and she had complained to the apartment manager about the doorbell not working, and the apartment manager hadn't fixed that, and that the doping control officer should have stopped and talked to the dog walking person to get some information about Michelle Ie. The Court for Arbitration of Sport didn't accept any of those arguments. They found that what the doping control officer did was reasonable under the circumstances to contact Michelle Ie, and therefore it was considered a missed test, and therefore an anti-doping rule violation subject to a 2-year sanction. In addition, because it was the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee who had filed the appeal on that, they ordered the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee to pay 3,000 Swiss francs to World Athletics as a contribution for their legal fees. So that was the interesting aspect on this case. Usually the Court for Arbitration of Sport doesn't ask an athlete to contribute to the legal costs, but in this case, since it was the Olympic Committee that filed the appeal, they are on the hook for helping to pay for World Athletics to the tune of 3,000 Swiss francs. Okay, our next story is Matthew Murphy. He is a water polo player from Australia. He plays on the national 20 and under team for Australia, and also for the Western Australia Torpedoes of the Australia Water Polo League. In February of 2020, during an in-competition test, he tested positive for metabolites of cocaine. Now, there's been a big change to the World Anti-Doping Code effective January 1 of 2021, and that's in regards to substances of abuse. Previously, substances of abuse, like metabolites of cocaine, were treated like other prohibited substances in that they were subject to a 4-year sanction for intentional violation or a 2-year sanctions if it's an unintentional violation. Now they're treated in a separate class, and if the athlete can show that the use of the substances of abuse was outside of competition and did not affect sport performance, then they can be subject to a 3-month sanction, subject to further reduction if the athlete successfully completes a rehabilitation program. So although the positive test was from February of 2020, because of the delay in processing this case, they applied the new rules and subjected the Australia Integrity Unit and Water Polo Australia subjected him to a 3-month sanction effective, and the sanction will start beginning January 1 of 2021. So a 3-month sanction for Matthew Murphy. And that's all the stories for this week. Next week, I'll be back with another episode of Anti-Doping Updates. Stay tuned until then.